All right. So now, before we get to the aspect of it on the field, if this is where it's at now with the civil cases, I have to think that this is something that gets settled soon, or because now that this happened, there's momentum potentially for there to be some kind of settlement, and we could see this happen sometime soon. Or look, I know you've talked to the attorney a couple of times, and hey, this could still play out for a long time.
The attorney is very, and now listen, it's up to the clients, but the attorney for the plaintiffs is very hell bent on seeing this through, if the clients want him to do so, which he's expressed that a lot of them do. However, they were heavily talking about settlement negotiations. They couldn't come to an agreement, but he did engage in those discussions. But right now, I would think that Deshaun Watson would want to see it through on the civil side and get a second win over there, because that would really do a lot of damage control to what he's had to go through in the public forum. And now he's empowered because he can show, look, I wasn't criminally indicted, and he can try to use that in his civil case to help him. So now he's got the leverage for the first time in all this. So he might want to push forward with it.
But we know how these cases kind of work out. Let's go back for a second. Let's look at the O.J. Simpson trial. A lot of that information that came out in that trial was used in the civil case, so there was compensation for the families of the victims, right? So when we look at
not convicted, but he was found guilty on the civil side, right?
Right, and that's the thing.
Liable.
Like the criminal side, he was found not guilty. On the civil side, he was found guilty, and I think this is why when Deshaun Watson pleaded the fifth on this case, he didn't want to bring up anything that can be used in the criminal case against him in the civil case.
Right, because on the civil side, you plead the fifth, it's held against you. You lose, you pay money. The criminal side, they bring that civil deposition in, and you've said something that can incriminate you, your freedom's at stake. So what are you going to choose? You're going to choose to not answer the questions on the civil side so that you don't screw yourself on the criminal side, rather than, even if it's going to hurt you on the civil side, that was the right move for sure.
All right, so even I think the one question.
Yeah, by the way, it was a 4-hour deposition out of 48 hours. So now he can answer. So
I think that the biggest thing for everybody is that, and I know this was my reaction when I first saw it, that, hey, we've been dealing with this case for a year. You're talking about 22 women and a lot of complaints, and they're going through 9 cases. And to very quickly have it be no criminal charges, that kind of surprised me that there was none. It kind of surprised me that it happened so fast. Were you guys surprised that that's how? Because that kind of took me by surprise. But I thought we would get what we got today, and then things would kind of maneuver out over the course of the next few days. But to get suddenly, hey, it's happening fast, and it's not the result that I think people expected it to see.
I thought, based on what I've seen in terms of the evidence, I thought that they were going to have a tough time proving this at trial if, in fact, Rusty Hardin, Watson's attorney, is right in that they have, text messages and other witnesses that are going to contradict the women's stories. Because unless they had direct evidence, I thought it was going to be tough. However, there were a lot of women, so that could sway people. On the grand jury side, I thought, well, listen, it's really easy to get an indictment normally with the grand jury. You're going to have 8 to 10 women up there, potentially. Plus, the police must have some sort of evidence in order to even bring it to the grand jury. But I'll tell you, today I was driving, and as I was driving, I got a flash, like the light bulb goes off, and all of a sudden you have an intuition. I had an intuition, and I was like, you know what? He's not going to get indicted today. And I felt that way because I've covered so many cases in the sports law realm, and I'm always surprised by the outcome. It's always like a shocking boom outcome. Like, I mean, you, Jason and Nick, you guys have covered these things too. Like with Ezekiel Elliott and all these other ones, it's like you think it's going to be one way, and then you're just like floored, and it shocks you. And I was like, I bet that's what's going to happen in this case.
Well, I'll tell you this. I wasn't shocked, guys, and here's why. Like Jason said, we had this thing that was ongoing for almost a year. And Houston PD, they were the closest, I guess, detectives on the case, and they didn't file any criminal charges against Deshaun Watson. So for me, I was holding out hope, like, no no criminal charges. He's going to be safe. He's going to be able to go and return back to his NFL career. Will his, I guess, persona take a hit? Absolutely. But as long as he doesn't have that criminal case hanging over his head as far as being guilty, he, like other athletes, will be able to put this behind him and say, look, I made a bad mistake. I did some things I regret, but now I need to move on. So I guess this a sigh of relief for Deshaun Watson, but I knew something like this was coming down the pipe.
Yeah, it just shows what I don't know about the law. You think you know so much, right? You know, and I've seen so many episodes of LA Law and Law and Order, and I know, and then I see it, I go, okay, I really don't understand. And it's just
think about it. If it was so easy to understand all the nuances of the law, why would I have to go for 3.5 years and eat my guts out in law school?
Yeah.
I wouldn't be spending that kind of money if I just up from watching TV shows.
Yeah. I mean, I guess it's got to be hard. That's true. Being a doctor, being a lawyer. I guess,
I now figure out how to perform major surgery on somebody. That's why I've watched every episode of Grey's Anatomy.
Yeah. I mean, look, I'd be great in front of the jury because I'd be like Tom Cruise in A Few Good Men, and I would dazzle them with but then all the other stuff like the actual research, I'm like, I don't know it. Oh, so there's this and there's that. I don't understand. This is when I text Amy and go, Amy, tell me what's going on. Tell me what this is. And I, like the Michael Scott from The Office, explain it to me like I'm 5. Like that's kind of what I need sometimes. But
you know where I learned all my my law information. Believe it or not, I learned all my law information from my cousin Vinny.
Oh, well, yes.
Oh, okay. Yes.
Not learn a lot about positraction as well, right? But
exactly.
One goes this way, the other one does nothing. Yeah. My daughter is now hyped up on that movie. We've seen it like 20 times. She's 13. She's in the car. She'll do a Mona Lisa Vito monologue just for the hell of it. And I'm going, okay, all right.
Yeah.
I go, leave out the curse word. Just leave out the curse words. I'll feel better as a parent.
Little Dia. Lips down to the brook.
And then bam. But getting back to Deshaun Watson, now it's the is his path cleared to play? And I know there's going to be teams. I don't think it's going to be the whole league interested, which is now suddenly they've been waiting for this day. But the teams that have been in it with him for a long time, you've been hearing the Miamis, Philadelphia, maybe New Orleans, the ones that have been okay. We don't know what we're going to do, but we can wait this out a little bit. I still think you're going to see those teams in, but I don't really see there suddenly being 20 teams saying now we're going to get in on Deshaun Watson. Because for some teams, really, what's going on is not something they want to get involved in. There's still going to be too much unknown for them. They're not going to want to plan forward and say, listen, we're just going to stay out of it. So I still think there'll be like a couple of.
I don't think that there was like a team waiting in the wings, literally with a deal on the table, waiting for this outcome right now, and that he would be signed like tonight.
No, no, I don't think so, guys. But to Jason's point, I mean, there's not going to be a lot of teams. There's 32 teams, and a lot of teams have already locked their position. I'm sure maybe the Washington football team might be kicking himself, might not. They have so much turmoil going in that organization already. But here in Denver, I mean, the question has already come up. Did the Broncos move entirely too fast? Are they regretting the move after hearing the news about Deshaun Watson? But the team that, for me, will emerge as the number one team will be the Seattle Seahawks. They've collected a mountain of picks from the Broncos trading for Russell Wilson, and they are in need of a quarterback.
So wait a minute. So 2 days ago, you made one of the best trades in the NFL you've seen. It was so great. We got Russell Wilson. So now 2 days later, it's maybe we didn't. Oh, you guys are crazy there. You guys are absolutely insane there.
You've been celebrating on social media. Your tweets are like so celebratory that I can actually see you dancing around in my head when I read them.
Well, listen, I'm all for Russell. I'm just telling you how others have expressed their opinion. I had one member of the media who I know well. He called me and he asked me that question. Do you think that the Broncos will regret the move? I'm like, no, you can't wait for this situation to play out with the Deshaun Watson and run the risk of losing Russell. We are great. We are happy with the guy that we have.
You know, when you talk about the teams that could be in it for Deshaun Watson, I kind of look at, and this is what I think honestly. If I had to say, how do I see this falling out? Philadelphia has been linked to him for a long time, right? The Eagles have been linked with Watson for a while. There was a couple of times during the season where we thought maybe this could happen and the Eagles would be the destination. Like they've had it and they've been in it for a while. So I would say if there's that one team like Amy was talking about, I would say it would be the Eagles. And then I see the Seahawks with Jalen Hurts because they wouldn't have to give up a lot for him because now suddenly the Eagles would have to say, well, we got to trade somebody. I mean, unless they wind up trading Hurts back to the Texans for him. But that's kind of how I see this going out is that the Texans are going to move on. The Eagles will be the destination just by seeing them being in it for so long and then seeing the Seahawks try to pounce on Hurts because I can't see them going to camp with Drew Lock and Geno Smith. I mean, I don't see it. So there's going to be a lot of going on. But now it's just a question, I think, of how fast it's going to be.
So I'm tweeting that your prediction right now is that the Eagles could be waiting in the wings, pun intended, for Watson, and he could be signed like any day now. If there's any team that's doing it, that's the team that you think is going to do it now that there's no criminal charges, at least on a serious one.
Yeah, there's do I think Miami might get back into it? Yeah, they might, but they had said, listen, we're moving on. We're not in the Deshaun Watson business anymore, but now things could change, obviously. But I don't know that you're going to see a team that's never been linked with Tim that's going to suddenly come out of nowhere and say, okay, now we're in for Deshaun Watson. It's going to be the ones that have been thinking about it the whole time because honestly, those are the ones who are going to come up with the best deal. Hey, we have coveted him and his talent for a while. This is what's going to happen, and this is how we're going to come forward. And honestly, that's Philadelphia number one, Miami a little bit ways away, maybe New Orleans a tiny bit, but Philadelphia to me, that's always been the team.
Well, Jason, let me ask you this question. Speaking of that, well, the Carolina Panthers, I think they are picking maybe fourth or fifth in this upcoming draft. They are still in need of a quarterback because they can't be really happy with what they've seen from Sam Darnold. But could that team enter into that race and now really push the number up for a guy like Deshaun Watson, knowing as though now there's no criminal charges?
Yeah, and that's why I don't know about it happening right away because now that this happened, the Texans are back in a position of strength. Like they were in a position of weakness with Deshaun Watson before because it was, well, this is what we want for him. And teams are saying, we're not going to give you that. We have no idea when he's going to be prepared to play, when he can go. Now, like Amy was saying about Watson has the momentum in his case, the Texans have the momentum to sit back and say, okay, now you want him? Yeah, that deal that we talked about, those 3 first-round picks and 2, now maybe it's going to be more 3 first, 2 seconds, and a couple of players. And it's going to be more like the Russell Wilson trade, except another first-round pick is going to get thrown in. So if I'm the Texans, I look at things now and saying, there's no rush. We can wait and get a bidding war going on here. So if it was we don't know what's happening, yes, the Texans, I would say, okay, we got to make that deal and move on. But now they played the game, and it turned out in their favor.
And shockingly, people were shaking their heads when the Texans were asking for like first-round picks and all this crazy stuff. And people are like, how can you ask for such a premium on a player who has so much uncertainty in the legal realm? Now, all along, the Texans did the right thing by not rushing into anything or devaluing him, held on. You know, that was a strategic move. And now, like you said, they're in the driver's seat. Very, very interesting in terms of just the NFL landscape and the team's interest in all this, how they strategized.
Now, if you could ballpark it from here, Amy, how do you expect things to go after the news today? How do you expect the next few days, weeks to go legally as far as benchmark stuff?
I expect myself to continue to harass the Harris County District.
Sure.
Until I get an answer that closes this out for me, for sure. And then he's going to be deposed and he's going to answer questions. So it's not the end of this whole saga because if the plaintiff's attorney can release those video depositions, they're going to release it. Then there's going to be a lot of public commentary on, is he telling the truth or is he not telling the truth? And people are going to be weighing in on that because he's still facing, 20 some odd claims on the civil side. I believe he would want to clear his name, but if he wants to settle it, he's in a great position right now to exercise his leverage and just make all of this go away, whether he did it or not. He's got the clearance on the criminal side right now in the public's eyes. By the way, there's a question. What about sending Watson to New Orleans, get the draft picks, Kamara, Thomas, and Demario Davis? They could win so quick in a week, AFC South.
Nick, what do you think now as far as, because I said the Saints could wind up being in it. The Saints could wind up in there because they've said they're monitoring this situation, and clearly they have an opening at quarterback. They haven't made their decision which way they want to go with the franchise. From people you've talked to, players, what's the opinion of Deshaun Watson after this? Is he still a guy that, hey, he can still be a big star in the NFL? Is he someone that, hey, a lot of people don't want to talk about him anymore? Like, where is he at as far as when you talk to people, what people think about him?
The idea, guys, is he still is a big-time player. Well, let's really step back and think about what this situation is. Yeah, I mean, the allegations from 22 different women, it doesn't sound great on the surface. But the one thing that makes his path a little more, I guess, that cleaner, if you will, is the fact that no criminal charges were filed. So now you're saying, okay, well, it is back to public opinion deciding who's right, who's wrong. Did he have consent in a lot of these situations or not? So a lot of guys that I talk to, because some have been in this situation where someone may have given consent, but then someone found out about it, and now they're trying to say you did something you didn't do. And then lo and behold, it goes to somewhat of a quiet trial, and then it finds out the guy is innocent. But what happened to his character? Because the worst thing you can do is be convicted in a court of popular opinion, because sometimes there's no comeback from that. I mean, what's going to happen with the sponsor? But most of the guys I've spoken to in the league, they're saying, once again, no criminal charges. Let's now move on. It now becomes a question of he said, she said, and who are you going to believe, the 22 women or Deshaun Watson? So I don't want to get into the minutia of that, but based on the fact that he wasn't convicted from a criminal standpoint, to me now it's time to move along. But there are going to be some repercussions because there is a player conduct policy that he still will have to deal with, even in a civil case where he could get a couple of games. But I don't think that's going to be enough, guys, to deter teams to say, well, you know what? We don't want him on our team.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Definitely. And I think, by the way, everyone who was so rushing to convict him, they should take this into account because it goes both ways. People are going to write slanderous things about an athlete. Well, guess what? If a grand jury sees the evidence and hears the testimony and decides not to vote to press charges on this person or bring charges against this person, especially serious ones, then that person deserves the benefit of the doubt. It's innocent until proven guilty. It's not guilty until proven innocent.
Well, Amy, I know you practice law and you study it, but that's not how it is seen in the eyes of players. When you look at Lady Justice, she's got a scale in her hand, but guess what? She's blinded, right? Lady Justice is blind. And in the case of players, sometimes we view it as we are guilty and we have to prove our innocence.
Well, that's what League of Justice is for. We have a defense section. Isn't that fantastic?
So for more info on this, obviously, leagueofjustice.com. Amy's going to keep putting this stuff out on Twitter. And as this story gets updated, we'll have more things going on. Great stuff, you guys. Thanks so much. And thank you, Batman. Thank you for spending time out of your day with us.
All right. Yeah. Take care, guys. Till next time.